Welcome to the Tour Life podcast from Well, Better, Best. I'm Janine, your host, integrative nutrition health coach and personal trainer. In the past 10 years, I've had the privilege of meeting some of the most interesting and hardworking professionals in the music industry. Whether you are a fan of live music or someone who actually puts on the shows, you'll find some great stories, advice, and encouragement to live a happier, healthier life doing what you love. Today's guest is a Chicago MC who has collaborated with artists such as Nother Friends, Prob Cause, Psalm 1, and the Hood Internet. You can find him on Instagram at ShowYouSuck. Here is my conversation with the wildly talented yet unassuming ShowYouSuck. Hi, Clinton. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to talk. And so you are ShowYouSuck. So
Yes.
I'm gonna call you Show from now on.
Okay.
Okay, so we met when I was working at Vocalo a few years back, like 5 years ago, and you did a little showcase for us at Shoe Buzz. Do you remember that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do
Yeah,
remember
so
that showcase. Holy shit, oh my God, that was such a long time ago.
it was so long ago. Yeah. And you've been up to some really cool stuff ever since. And I love all of your videos. They're super cool. They have this like retro vibe, which I think is awesome. But what have you been up to ever since? I mean, tell me.
I've since then I've started a band with Steve Rydell of the Hood Internet called Air Credits. And it's a rap project that kind of it's a concept project. It's like rap music that takes place in a post-apocalyptic future where there's no water and like air is used as currency. So it's a project that's kind of it's speaks on like current topics, but it's kind of masked in this story that takes place in the future. I've also been DJing quite a bit. Actually, this tour I have coming up is my first tour as a DJ. So I'm getting prepared. I've been preparing for that for quite a while. I started working at Record Breakers, the record store in Avondale. In store, and also like I'm handling like marketing and like booking events there. So that's kind of a new thing in the past couple of months for me. And recording the next solo album. I've been in the process of doing that too. So it's been a busy, at least within this calendar year, it's been really busy. But we have been touring on and off for like the past 3 years.
That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I love the video. I watched the one and where you were talking about the one that you're doing with the Hood Internet with the water and like how that's
Oh, okay, no
currency. And
water.
so are you pretty politically active? Because it kind of has like a vibe.
Um, I'm not, and not in the terms of like going to like events and marches, so to speak. But I guess I'm finding my voice in that space. Um, Especially within the past couple of years, I'm definitely like figuring out how I'm most effective within that space and I how to funnel my thoughts and my commentaries into my art. I'm still I'm in the I call it the ugly haircut phase of that. So I'm still figuring that out. So I guess yes, but not in the traditional sense that I think a lot of people think of that. I pay attention to what's going on. Um, am I in the field always? Not necessarily. Kind of depends on the issue, but I'm starting to learn what my boundaries are with it and how I exist in that space.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I think, the political commentary just kind of is something that goes with music and art. to begin with. So it makes sense. So let's back up a little bit before we get into all this. I want to know more about your story, like how you even got into music in the first place. Kind of what are the things that were happening around your formative years that led you to decide to take on a career in music?
Um, I grew up uh living with my mom it, as the only child. Um, my brother and sister lived in a different household, so I mostly grew up by myself. So I was kind of left to my own devices quite a bit. So I I used to watch a lot of MTV, and I used to draw a lot. So that was kind of my creative outlet. Um, Going into middle school, and kind of going into, it's really weird. Kind of coming out of middle school, I something about um sketching and like drawing, I just kind of fell out of love with. So I was kind of searching for another creative outlet, and I didn't want to join a band because no one I lived around had bands. That wasn't a thing. The most popular music where I'm from was like hip hop and R&B. So, like band culture wasn't a thing. So I started writing raps because it was like the form of music that you needed less resources for. Um, uh, yeah, so I started writing music, uh, kind of eighth grade. Going into high school, my high school years was my first time recording, and graduating high school, that was my first dive into trying to make music like a career. Um, and I had a handful of years trying that, and I kind of fell out of it for a while. Um, and I helped a friend start an art gallery in Chicago, and that kind of led to me also managing a tattoo shop, and I was kind of like happy doing that with my life. I was kind of still making music and doing shows just kind of for fun, um, and it's really weird. It just kind of developed a following once I started being vocal about it when I was in the city more. And the next thing I know, I had my first sold out show was at Reggie's, and I guess at the end of that night, I decided that I was going to try to do this like full on. So I've been in a space where I've just been kind of like catching up to the idea that I'm actually doing this all while I'm doing it.
That's so cool. So when you were younger, did you ever throw out the idea of pursuing music to your like your mom or anything?
That's really weird because I kind of did. I kind of did during high school, but I held back about it for a really long time because older people in my life had such a negative view of rap music. So I wasn't so eager to show it to them. Not even that the music I was making was like vulgar or anything, but just like, if I don't think you like rap, I'm not going to show you my rap music. Like, you know, so I kind of had this experience. It was like a year after I graduated high school, and rap was like, actually kind of like getting me opportunities. Like I was traveling a little bit, very little. I was traveling a little bit for shows. And this is maybe like 2005. So being a rapper from Chicago wasn't a cool thing to do. There wasn't a blueprint of success. It wasn't like what it is now. So my mom had to find out that I was rapping from a friend of mine's parent that saw that I had a show booked in like Vegas or something like that. So I had this weird, like, I had to come out, like I got outed like as a rapper.
Wow,
So yeah,
that's
yeah. So
wild.
yeah, it wasn't like I kind of did it. I also didn't want to tell a bunch of people about it because I didn't want to be held to it from people checking on the progress of it all the time. I just wanted to have a thing that was for me. And that's what rap was for a long time. It was just this thing that I did that was for me. And it wasn't about what the progress was of it or like what I was getting out of it. I was just doing it and going for the ride. So it took a long time for me to like tell my mom about it.
Yeah. So how did sorry, my dog's barking. He's just going to
It's
be in
okay.
every episode, I
I
think.
got a dog barking here too.
um, but what do you think changed in music, where now it's more it's a more accepted career choice?
There's just more examples of success stories. That's just what it is. And also, through social media, people can like pick a team, can pick an artist, and then champion that artist from the start, and then see them like do crazy things and get bigger and bigger as they're a fan. So they can see the story from the beginning now, where before there was no way to really see the story at the beginning. You just kind of see this person that's like a rapper that's not famous. Why would you care about them? There's no way to attach now. Especially like seeing a lot of artists that the biggest example I see is when you see the younger group artists who are big now because they started their followings in high schools, and those high school kids was a fan of them and then went to college, passed their music around, and then so on and so forth. So that kind of gave the perception of a local rapper doesn't look so small anymore, because there's so many success stories that people can like were a part of in real time.
Yeah, and you feel like you're a part of their journey, so you're invested in their success.
Yeah. I've come from an era where like it was not cool to be a local rapper because you were not a famous rapper yet. You know what I'm saying? There was no middle ground. It was either you were not famous or you a big deal.
Yeah. So how do you think all that affected you as a person? Just having to basically hide what you're doing, but then also using it as a way to express yourself. So it's kind of contradictory. So how did that affect you emotionally and like in life?
Well, I have it's a piece of my imposter syndrome for sure. Um, and well, what it did was it didn't allow me to like fully immerse myself into it because I had to live this life outside of it. And hide. And also it was really weird. Like I was developing a following from it. And you get all these people giving you like telling you all these really nice things about the stuff that you're making. But it's like the people closest to you have no idea it's happening. It's a really weird thing. It's like when I would go home for for like holiday dinners, it's really weird. Like it was always really weird having this whole chapter of my life. Like it's like outside of this space. I guess for lack of better terms, it's like, oh, I'm like kind of famous. Like, and none of these people here that who grew up, who I'm like blood related to have no idea. It's a really weird dichotomy. It's like you're like two different people.
Wow, it's like it's like being Spider-Man, right?
Yeah, for real. That's for real what it is.
Wow. And so who were the people in your life that knew? Was it just your friends? Was there anyone who really helped you kind of manage all that?
Yeah, it was just friends. Eventually along the ride, a friend of mine's became a manager, and like kind of helped um navigate through this shit. But like that person was a first time manager too, so it was like you're just kind of going through all this for the first time. And also the rise of my career came at a very it came at a weird time, because there wasn't a lot of examples of there wasn't as many examples now of like kind of how to do it with like a rapper and then like their friend turned manager. That's a normal thing now. When I was in it, there was no little to no examples of it, so we're just kind of like navigating this shit together, very very new. um but yeah, that was kind of the only people that my friends knew about it. And even I had so many different friend groups. My friends always knew that I had made music, but all like say I had friends that I would skate with. Though wasn't necessarily the same friends that I went to hardcore or punk shows with. Friends that I made rap music with wasn't the same friends that I did any of those other activities with. So all my friends were in different groups. And through me, through my career kind of moving, all those friend groups came together. So now I'm also dealing with like all these new dynamics with people that I've always loved in my life are now meeting each other, and some people clashing, some people doing cool things together. It's like it was a very wow like whirlwind.
Wow. Yeah. So I actually recently just went to my first hardcore show on Tuesday.
Who'd you see?
I saw it was Marauder and
Okay.
Leeway, and then my boyfriend's band, or he's moonlighting. He's not technically in the band yet, but it's called Sector. So they opened, and then there was another
Okay.
band. Yeah, there was another band. I can't remember their name, but yeah, it was wild. There were
Oh
like,
yeah, that's the community. Like as a
yeah.
solo artist, I was in a rap group before I was solo, and once I was solo, my career really developed a following from the hardcore scene. Yeah, I was doing all my shows at hardcore shows.
Wow, yeah, and I mean, it seems like such a community. It's like everyone that was showing up, like they all knew each other from like years. Some of them hadn't seen each other in years and stuff.
Yeah,
But it's like,
yeah,
Marauder had come in, and so there was somebody who was visiting from like Portland, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna come out to the show." Like Marauder's Marauder or whatever.
yeah, yeah, yep.
And
That's
obviously, like
yeah.
I
That's where
have
I
no
come from.
idea, so it was really cool to see all that. Yeah. So how do you think that so were you able to get the community and like the support that you got just from your friends? Like did that like what sort of struggles did you have to deal with that weren't filled by those things?
Well, being a local rapper wasn't cool, so you're fighting against the wave of like um my era is like pre like beginning of internet. So I still know what it is to start a music career and your audience is your geographic area. Like so for a long time in the Chicago hip hop scene, I was an oddity. Like just like the things I was rapping about, even like the stuff I was wearing, like I was a like oddity. So I had to figure out how to navigate in this space because there was no way for me to get an audience anywhere else. Um Also just fighting the stigma of like being a local rapper was might as well have been a struggle rapper. You're like a struggling artist, like to people. So you also have the fighting against the how do you get them to like not see you as this like struggling thing to like even like give you a chance. Um, that was most of the that was really like the two main things that's what turned around, especially specifically, well, really in every scene, music scene, especially when it comes to rap music. Like there are people that are now fans of the people that do that art next to them now, and not just who's already on a pedestal. um and like the internet helped with that. I gained a following in other cities because of the internet before Chicago. So what was happening was my shows here would get packed because people from Chicago could see that there were fans of me in other cities because of the internet.
Yeah, and so then they were like, "Oh, so he's actually pretty cool if other people like him," which I think is interesting because I have a friend who he is a producer and he does like deep house and stuff.
Okay.
And he says that a lot of the promoters in Chicago kind of like don't care about the Chicago producers. And unless you're coming from out of town, like they don't treat you right. But if you go to other cities, it's like it's a 180. Have you ever
Yeah.
experienced something like that?
Well, it's because if you book a all local thing, people don't show up. They don't show up until they see, oh, there's a person from this other city coming. So then I'll go to that. Like if promoters know results, they know it's the results. So it's like they can people artists want to complain about promoters not booking them, but they are not being like paying attention to the scene. But and when you book the scene, the people from the city have to come. They have to be interested in the local community that makes that music. But oftentimes they don't show up unless there's a draw from another city coming in, which is fine. But I think there's a lack of communication between all parties that kind of make this thing. My thing is, I had to, my first shows, especially like Chicago, like rap shows, I had to book the venue. I had to rent out the venue. Like no one was booking like rap at a lot of these venues when I was coming up in the scene. I made my own way, and I think that's a thing that a lot of other genres could benefit from. How the hip hop scene it is was we rented out the venues and just threw the show, and then it got to the point where venues had to book me because I was already packing their places. So you got to make your way, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. And like a lot of just a lot of creators and lots of industry and lots of fields, right? So like podcasters, or if you have a business, have like a cupcake company, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's like you have to make something before anybody starts paying attention.
Yeah.
And then and like nobody's going to promote it for you. You have to do it yourself.
Yeah, even though there's a person with a job title called a promoter, that's really not their job. Their job is to book the show. Unfortunately, that's promoters promoting isn't a real thing anymore. Like, so we need to just like forget that.
Yeah, just axe that title completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I want to know more about your I find it so interesting that you had to hide what you were doing, and also that you were floating around different circles. And I kind of experienced that when I was younger. Like I never really built super like solid relationships between like one circle of friends, because I would like kind of hop around. And so I'm just interested on how you navigated that, and how that formed you, and how that affects the way that you see life now and how you see relationships.
Yeah, there's so many, like all people, there's so many parts that make up you. And specifically with me, since I grew up in my household as an only child, was left to my own devices, I've always had all these different interests. I've always watched all these random things on TV, always listened to these random songs. So having friends in my life, no one was ever all equal parts of me. Like I have had a friend, some of my friends watch wrestling and basketball, but they didn't watch obscure horror movies. So I meet these people over here, and we talk about obscure horror stuff, but they don't listen to metal. I got these friends over here that I listen to metal with, so I just enjoy talking about the things that I'm into. So I find groups of people that are into the things that I'm into, and I've always been that way. So that's why I've always just had to float. I for a long time I lived in Bellwood, Illinois, which is kind of an extension of the west side of Chicago. But for a long time I worked out in Schaumburg, which is just a completely different environment. So I had, my friend reach has always been further than where I lived, even before the internet. So naturally, when when social media comes, I'm really good at finding communities and like kind of being part of these communities. Like even now, the same friends that I make rap music with isn't the same people that I go to and see when I'm at drag shows. I'm always into moving around in like different crowds, respectfully and authentically.
Yeah, and you seem to have a really positive mindset. And
I
you
try.
seem to really
It's the exercise.
So, well, how was it? So it wasn't always like that. How have you had some experiences where you had to figure out how to be more positive and how to lead with like a light?
um I overall, how I see it, and my life has kind of always went like this. All the best things that have happened in my life have literally only coincided with like the worst things that have ever happened. So it took me a while to kind of figure, and this works for me. I don't know. I hope if I don't know how this mindset would work for someone else, but I kind of see life. It's really, there's no good and bad, and I say that, and I know there's degrees, right? Like there's this, uh, there's definitely terrible things that have happened, right, and good things. But overall, for me, how I go through life at this point, life, there's no good and bad. It's just a series of events. And the only thing you can control is how you like react to these things. So my thought process is, and even like through all the bad things that happened in my life, like in some type of way, it works out. Not without some work and not without communication and asking for help, but like things work out. So I choose to, as much as I can, just like speak positively to myself, in terms of the language of how I speak to myself, be positive. And when I'm speaking things with other people, speak positive or be real. I'm a realist. Like it's not a blind happiness. I have an awareness of things, but like I just choose to the language, it's just like I've definitely struggled with it. I've struggled with depression really my whole life. And it's to the point now where I'm learning to I don't take it personal anymore. I don't take my moods or the things that happen in my life personal. Because everybody's on the same ride to different degrees. So the best thing I can do at this point is just like try to be as much of a light as possible. I'm not always good at it. Jordan missed shots, Serena Williams misses hits. You know what I'm saying? But as much as I can, just like I don't know, just keep it cool. Like I just try to keep it cool.
How did you get there though? Like what helped you figure that out?
Part of it is the example that my mom set growing up. I never seen her spaz on nobody. Even in instances, how I always seen her treat people of service. If we at a restaurant, if something's wrong, she's not disrespectful, little shit like that. Like when you're in a checkout line and like you get the wrong change, like just how you treat people in service when something doesn't go according to plan. How I saw her treat people when things don't go how they're supposed to go. I think I learned a lot from that. Oddly enough, watching sitcoms taught me a lot because you see those character archetypes of like the bully and like the person who's an asshole, right? And how they're framed on the show. I was like, I never want to be seen like that. Also, I had older cousins that I had an example. I see them do stupid shit, and I don't want to act like that because you look crazy. Or even being in school, and it's like seeing a kid act a certain way, and it just like made me feel weird. So I was like, okay, I don't want to act like that.
Yeah, it's funny how like we witness a lot of things, and like the things that annoy us the most are I almost feel like life is just trying to point out to us that like that's what not to do.
Yeah. For me, I'm real big on being an observer. So I just like, I learned, especially being an only kid, I learned how to, around adults, I was around adults a lot. So I learned how to shut up and just like watch.
Yeah. How do you think that that helps you? Because it helps you become a better listener, right? Because you're observing
Mhm.
and you're listening. So how has that helped your career and how has that helped your personal life?
Well, career wise, it helped me. It helps a lot. Like, I don't know, from working retail and then like just like being quiet and watching, you observe people and like you see cues from humans that other people don't catch. So, a lot of people I had a feeling out about not working with, who were, turned out to be right. I shouldn't have been working with them. Um, it helps me see that people communicate different ways. So I can work with a lot of different kinds of people because I'm not so bent on getting things the way that I need to get them. I'm more so, uh, I don't. Hmm. Such an interesting question. I never really thought about it. I'm more
Like you show
reactive
up.
than like
Yeah.
pushing. It helps me be more reactive, which is a downside. My whole career has been very reactive, more than like creating situations and creating things. I've been more reactive to things, but that's like helped me get through life. So I'm in a space now where I'm trying to break that with my music career. I don't have to live so reactive anymore because I learned that it was more so of a defense mechanism than anything. I can take more reign over what I want to do with my life now. Oddly enough, because it seems like I do that a lot to the outside world, but I'm more so reacting to the things that pop up, reacting to the opportunities. Yeah, it just kind of helped me like not come into a room and take over a room. It kind of helps like the way I grew up and the examples that I had set for me helped me learn how to come in spaces, check out how they work, and then figure out how to learn how to insert myself into it. A lot of people just kind of like pay their way into pay their way into a scene or like force their way into a scene with a strong personality. I feel like I'm able to transition into things a lot smoother because the way I observe and the way I learned. So yeah, I think yeah, and even with personal relationships, um transitioning into me is very simple. It's not like I'm not, oh, hey, I like you. Tell me where you're going to be all the time. Let's hang out all the time. Like I know how to transition into like being friends with someone, I think.
Yeah, so it's almost like you have like a season where you're observing, and I feel like this is kind of what I'm getting from how your life happened, where like you it was more of a defense mechanism, but you were also just listening and watching and learning. And now you're in a space where you're ready to start doing things with more intention.
Yes, 100%. My going into next year, and this was my mission for this year. That didn't work out as much, but my plan for next year is to do everything with intent. And it's great that you use that word intention because that's literally like all my relationships, all the art that I make is going to be with more intent. When more so, I just been like easy with the go, and that's been the anchor of all my relationships. I'm so easy going, but I want to love with intent. I want to create with intent. I want to move with intent. Like that's my that's how I will improve myself, I think. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and so what I mean, you sound really excited. So like what goes through your mind when you realize that you have all these plans? Like what happened? What changed that made you make that shift?
Um, well, my music career, for so long has run off, I've never had a hit song. But I've been able to tour. I've been able to branch out in so many other opportunities because of my music career. So for me, that just means that I get opportunities based off of the relationships I have with people, the rapport I have, and as great as that is, that runs out sooner or later. Um, so I have to figure out with my career, it's like, okay, what do I, besides having a hit song, what can I do to like keep myself in the scene, keep myself in the loop, keep the wheels going. And I have to move with intent. I have to come up with a thing, execute a thing, and have plans, flexible plans. But I just have to move with more intent. My music career has been like running off the legend of itself for a few years. And now, yeah, I wanted to run off the way that I steer it now. I've been going off of opportunities, which has been great, but I just want a little control over how my career is going. It's not that it's been going bad, but I have to prepare for the transition. There's a new crop of artists coming in, and it's not about quitting, but it's just about, okay, like now I just want to be intentional with I want my success to be intentional.
Yeah, and like make your own opportunities and stuff, right? So that reminds me of you had a show on JBTV. Is that kind of
Yeah, that's
how that happened?
we announced that a few years ago, and uh that's one of the things that my imposter syndrome kicked in and really kind of like uh really like, I want to say ruined, because it didn't ruin it, but it held it up. um I've always, all my whole, not my whole life, but my creative career has been fueled on me getting these opportunities that I never saw coming, and then like making it work. My motto has always been, I just say yes and figure it out when I get there. And that's been my career thus far. Um, and this is one of the things where like the opportunity kind of presented itself for me to have like an hour of programming for JBTV, and I can do, um, I can express all these like random ideas that I've always had, and I said yes. And I was producing the show in the middle of a heavy tour schedule, and the helping hands that I kind of had on deck kind of wasn't as on board, and also I kind of felt the burden of um, having that platform. Because when the show got announced, the number of emails that I got from people wanting to like have their work featured, or like uh, agents were emailing me about their clients, like getting like roles on the show. It was so overwhelming. It was really, really overwhelming. It kind of like made me shut down.
Yeah,
Um,
because you weren't ready for it,
I
right?
wasn't ready. Like I
Yeah.
was not ready for that. I didn't know that I now had the burden of the awareness of the platform I had. For me, it was just like, oh, I can like, oh, y'all gonna air this thing that I make, there's 2 episodes that have been done for this show, but I just been like, uh, I just pulled back. My imposter syndrome just kicked my ass like that year, and I just like really pulled back from that opportunity. And there's been a few times in my life where that's happened. But
What have you
the
learned from those
what did I learn
experiences?
from that? I more so learned to really ask for all the things I need right up front. Um, for the things that I need up front. Um, be more direct about what I need up front. Um, I also learned that uh, I am capable of executing um, my bigger vision. I was totally capable of the opportunity. I just wasn't in the headspace for it. I also learned that you don't have to do 3 things at once. So it was okay. I learned from that. It was like okay to like back from this. Um, I think oftentimes, especially being art like musicians, it's like when you announce an album, you now feel like you have to put that album out on that day. Where I learned that I can do whatever I want.
Kanye does. Right?
Yeah, because we can do whatever
Yeah,
we
yeah,
want,
yeah,
and that's
for
what my whole
sure.
music career has been based on. It's like I do whatever I want, not in a I'm all powerful sense, but it just in a sense it's like, okay, if this show doesn't happen on this day, what's who loses? No one. It's okay. Like it's cool. Yeah, I learned that I control the car. I can stop the ride whenever I want to stop the ride. I can start the ride whenever I want to start the ride.
Yeah, and then it's just like it's a balance of like accountability, but then also just being real with yourself when you're
100%.
committing to things, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, so what keeps you doing stuff? Like what are you, what's your why? Like, why do you wake up every day and continue to pursue music and make art what drives you, and what do you want to provide to the world?
Um, uh, I do it now because I do it for the process. Um, for me, the process of it is, it keeps dynamics in my life. Um, I get something out of getting this shit out of my head. Um, I used to do it for the result, but you can't control the result. I was oftentimes very let down by the results. So I learned that I had to I had to fall in love with the process. So now just the process of making things is just part of my everyday. It's like it's just important as me eating and breathing. Like, it's just as important as sex. It's just as important as calling my mom to check in. I do it so I can live every day, and have balance. Some sort of balance in my life. That's really it. That's it. And part of like my contribution to the world, like I just want to, I don't know. I want to do the things that I need to do to help me stay out of the way. I don't want to be in anyone's way. I don't want my traumas to affect anyone else's life. I just don't want to affect anyone else's life in a negative way. So everything that I do is like part of the long run of me getting out of the way. If I made 100 grand off of music, like I would be out of the way. Like, yeah, I'll just like pack my things and like I will be so out of the way. I feel like there are just so many people that are working towards bettering themselves and then they continue to be in the way. I just want to not be part of that. I just want to collect meaningful moments and fun moments with people that are around me and people that I connect with. And like, that's the legacy of my life. Like, there's not really a crazy end game. If I'm not fulfilled by music, the process of making music one day, then I don't have to do it. I'll figure out some other medium. I don't know. I just want to make things.
Have you felt like you were in the way in the past? And how?
Yeah, for sure. For a lot of different reasons. Not as much as other people. It was, there comes a time. There was a time in my career, right? Especially in Chicago, where I was like opening. When it came to hip hop shows, I was opening for just about every major act that was coming through. And when I look back at that, I go, wow, man, I was like, I didn't need to take all those shows. I could have been like, oh, I'll take this show. And then this other opportunity that comes up that's like a couple of weeks away. Oh, I can like suggest this person to be on that, because I was fine, my rent was covered for that month. So I really didn't need those extra shows. I could have just like passed those off to someone else. And to me, that's kind of like, my new rule of thumb for life is like, I don't need access. Spread the wealth. Get out the way. Yeah, I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. I could be wrong on that.
Well, you bring up a good point though, because you say that you don't want to be in the way, but I feel like what you're really saying is that you want to also contribute, and you want to be the helping hand. You don't want to be the person who like keeps people from,
yeah, absolutely,
from doing better just because you're being selfish and you're like taking everything,
Yeah, it's just like a deal you take is a deal that someone else can't get.
Where does that come from?
There's a lot of things that, looking back, just really music career wise, it was like I really didn't need to say yes to that. I could have just like passed on that, and it would have went to someone else. yeah, I don't know. You know, and like at that time, there was no way for me to know that because I didn't have the experience and I didn't have the perspective. But now I got the perspective. I have the burden of the awareness now, basically. So I have to act accordingly because now I'm burdened with, I know, I just know now. Yeah, I'm just like, I don't know. At least for my life, like I just want a simple existence. So there's not a real big end game. Uh, for me, life just throws way too many curveballs at this point for me to like even have an end game. So I'm just out here, like I'm just here, like
Yeah, I mean I think that's a really good way to do anything, because it's like it's so easy to get so caught up in the results, and like, to have this big idea, and then as soon as things get difficult, you're like, I don't think this is right for me. You get imposter syndrome or whatever. But I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that's
I
really
had
more
that
about
heavy.
and that's really more about, I think, the result, right? Because if you don't get the result, then it's like, well, then I'm not for real, right?
Yeah,
But when you're in love with the process, it's a totally different thing.
it's being in music is such a mind fuck. It's really crazy because it's like, let's say for instance, there's been times where like I put out a song, I put out a single, and maybe like in a month it'll maybe have like 2,000 plays. Um, and at this point in my career, I would think that like I would looking at those numbers, I'd be like, why doesn't this have more? Um, but I'll have a show in Boise, Idaho, and go to this show, and there's 500 people there, and like, and I'm like at the merch table, and they're all telling me like how much this song like did for them. And then I'm like in this limbo of like, or I'll take it on the flip side, right? Like, put out a song, I'll have a song or a project, and it'll get 10,000 plays in this month, which is like, for me, it was just like huge. And I can have a Chicago show and like 60 people will show up. It's just
Yeah,
like
you're like, the
this.
math doesn't add up.
Yeah, yeah. No, in a logical sense, a lot of these things don't add up. And it's because there's so many things that other artists who you see where all the things line up, they have so many other pieces in order that you don't have, but you don't see that part. So it's just like this whole thing is just there's so many moving parts to it. And the result, you really can't control the result unless you have a full like machine. Um, so I've learned to let go of the results. Um, uh, yeah, I just let go of the results and I become more into the process. And it's helped my outlook on this shit so much because touring like is so wild because one night you're playing for 500, next night 20 people show up. And there's so many factors as to why that happens. And it's not just your worth. It's not just like, oh, I'm not a good enough artist. That's why all these shows aren't sold out. A lot of times that has nothing to do with it. There's so many of these other factors involved in it, but it still affects how you feel about yourself. And I was like, if I'm going to survive doing this, then I have to change that because it's just torture. It's just self-torture at this point. So I don't look at it like that anymore. The numbers of people that show up to see me have nothing to do with my self-worth anymore. Yeah.
So what do you do because I'm sure you get down. And so what do you tell yourself to get yourself back, snap yourself out of it?
I literally tell myself the things that I just said. Like I literally have to like say them out loud I literally have to say them to myself. Or when I'm talking to a bandmate or someone I'm traveling with or another musician and I'm giving them the pep talk of like, you're amazing. Like none of these things affect your person, you as a person. I'm telling them to myself too, because I'm often feeling the same way that they're feeling. So when I'm saying like, as I'm saying it to you now, this is me giving myself a pep talk, because some days I'm not so good at it. Sometimes I feel like shit about the road that I've taken. And I've realized that I'm not in pursuit of a full week, a 7-day week of me feeling fully positive about what I'm doing. I allow myself Tuesday to like feel down about it. I allow myself Thursday to feel down about it. Like that's with reason. So yes, yeah, I'm not great at it sometimes. I'm great at it I'm good at it most of the time though, and that's just the language that I use when I talk about my career, the language that I use. I'm not a lot of people are kind of condescending about their career, like you ask someone what they're working on and, they go, spending a lot of money on my album, like I try not to have that type of language about what I'm doing, because after a while, as harmless as it may seem for one or two conversations, being someone who makes stuff in Chicago and people know that I make stuff, if I go somewhere, someone's asking me about what I'm working on, no matter where I go. So I was like, okay, this is just what my life is now. So I have to make sure that I feel up about it. And I'm real about it. If I'm like even when I'm working on my album right now and I'm in a tough spot of it, if I'm talking to it about someone, I tell them, hey, I'm in the tough spot of it, but like, I still talk about it positively as a positive experience.
Yeah, I think that's really real. And we all experience it. It's like you can start your day, just being negative, and then it sets you up for a horrible day.
Self-loathing ain't what's up.
Yeah. You could just, turn it around from the beginning, or just catch yourself. But again, like you said, give yourself that space to feel bad, because you do need to feel. Because when you suppress everything and you like compartmentalize like all of these feelings, they end up blowing up.
And I'll even say this for me, for any other person who makes stuff, who feels this way, because I feel like this doesn't get talked about a lot. Me making music and me making art isn't therapeutic for me. It isn't. I would never say it's a therapeutic experience. It's just a thing that I like to do. And it's a thing that I'm seemingly good at. So that's not me making something isn't my outlet for when I feel a certain way. I have to put in actual work to not feel to not have that current feeling of sadness. I have to, change my environment. I may have to, cause a lot of time it's really easy to isolate in this job. Cause if I'm not touring, I don't have anything to do. So it's real easy to isolate. I make sure I'm not isolating. I make sure I'm eating. I go for walks. I game. I got into improv as having an activity outside of this thing. So I have some, there's a bunch of things that I implemented into my life that I do for when I'm starting to feel that I'm hitting a downswing. And for me, that's just because the actual, as much enjoyment as I get from the process of making music, it doesn't rectify any of my mental health shit. It isn't. Yeah. Like me coloring or anything that I do creative, I wouldn't say necessarily for me that it's therapeutic. It's just a thing that I like to do. And it's a thing that I'm good at. There's other things that I implement in my life, and I had to find those things that do that for me.
That's interesting that you said that you got into improv. So I put my son into improv at Second City when they started the kids program when he was like 7 a few years ago.
Okay.
And the reason I did it was because his dad passed away when he was 5 years old.
Okay.
And he developed a stutter. And so I didn't really know what to do. But I knew about Second City, and I knew that improv helps you kind of be comfortable in your weirdness, right? And so so I just signed him up. And so he's been doing it for years. And his stutter did go away.
Oh my God.
I feel like
amazing.
it's actually really shaped the way he is. Like he's more comfortable not being, quote unquote normal.
Yeah.
So how has it helped you?
It's helped me lean into my instincts. I always saw it as another skill set, and at this point, I definitely see myself as as a performer. I never had the outlet of theater growing up. I never had the outlet of comedy growing up. I didn't even know those things. I thought people having a theater class in their school was something on TV. Like, I never went to a school that had a theater program or nothing like that. So as I get older, I'm starting to learn, like, oh, maybe I'm actually a theater kid. I just never had the outlet. So my opportunity to do improv showed itself. So I just took it. But I'm learning how to deal with fuck ups. And I'm also, and through improv, I'm learning how to, I want to fuck up in front of people. I want to wipe away the stigma of fucking up. That's what I did it for. Because rap wise, we're doing shows and touring so much. Every show was like going good, even when there was mess ups, right? It was, you mess up something and afterwards people still say they love the show. So like after a while, I'm starting to think, I'm like, how do I learn? I'm not really learning from this process anymore. So I was like, let me go in somewhat of a different medium and learning how to bounce off of people. It was all things that I kind of knew how to do, but by mistake. And now through improv, I'm learning them as a skill set.
Yeah. An exercise that I find an exercise that I find really interesting that I love watching the kids do is the yes and.
What is that?
So yes and it's basically like one of the people like in the group will say something, like they'll come up with a scene or something, and then they'll just like they'll say something's happening, and then the next person will be like, yes, and this other thing happening. And then the next person, and you just keep adding on to it, but you can't say no.
Yes.
And
that's the main thing about improv. You're not, you don't say no.
Yeah. And it allows, I think it validates like people's creativity and ideas, because you're not going to get a no, and you know that other people are going to make it better.
Yeah. So you go with it. Yeah. It's great. Yeah. And I had no idea that I was going to get that out of it.
That's amazing. Wow. So we are almost out of time. So I just wanted to ask you, what's a piece of advice that you've received from someone or that you came up with yourself that you think can help people, and especially people in the industry, continue doing what they love in a happier, healthier way?
Yeah, the biggest piece that I learned over the past couple of years, and I think I mentioned it earlier, but like what helps me is, especially in a creative career, is that I'm starting to learn is I move with the mindset of like, there's no good and bad here. It's just series of events. For every good thing that happens with your creative career, something bad can happen, and it doesn't negate the good thing that happened. Those are all results. Find enjoyment in the process. Find fulfillment in the process. It will save you a lot of agony in the long run. Just enjoy the process. The results are so varying. There's so many variables that you don't control with the results of your art. How people take it in, how they analyze it. There's so many factors. Create, make what you want to make, and get that fulfillment out of it. Not what it's going to do for people, because you really can't control what it's going to do for people.
Yeah, it's what does the process do for you, and take the good with the bad, right? Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was an amazing conversation. It was so great talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've very much enjoyed this convo. Thanks. Yeah, and thanks for working with getting the time together. I know it took a couple of tries, but we did it.
Oh, it's all good. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Take care.
Here are some key takeaways from my conversation with ShowYouSuck. 1. Treat people well when things don't go the way they're supposed to go. Don't be a bully. 2, language is important, and negative self-talk will prevent you from enjoying your life. Choose to speak positively to yourself and to others. 3, the number of people that show up to a show has nothing to do with your self-worth. Say that out loud. Believe it. 4, when you feel like shit about the road you've taken, sit with your feelings, allow those negative feelings, then give yourself a pep talk and keep moving. And 5, do things with intent and collect meaningful moments. There is no end game. It's all about falling in love with the process. Thank you so much for joining us on the Tour Life podcast. Be sure to give Show a follow on Instagram at ShowYouSuck. And don't forget to subscribe, leave a review on iTunes, and to follow the Tour Life on Instagram at the Tour Life Podcast.